You like?
Oh, okay, looking into the light.
Yeah, look. This is the first time ever, and I'm absolutely honoured to have the great Steve Bunce, the author, the journalist, the experienced man. He showed me pictures when he had hair, when he told me
Lots of hair.
about writing all of those articles ringside and having the deadlines. And look at this, I've got him on the channel. I love experienced men. Take that how you want.
I will.
But yeah, let's talk boxing, Steve.
Yeah,
Let's talk
oh,
boxing.
shoot. What a period, eh? I mean, over the last 10, 15 years, we have months, we have weeks, and then you look back at the end of the year, so that was a good year, then the next year's better. I've never lived in the past, so even though I might have started covering boxing in the mid-80s, and there were great fighters, mid-90s, unbelievable fighters, start of this century, great fighters. I won't allow myself to live in the past. I grew up with too many old men working in the boxing business who only lived in the past. Everything was Muhammad Ali. Everything was Marvin Hagler. No, I've tried really to move. And the stuff we're getting in the last few years, look at the last few months. It's been insane. This year's been ridiculous. And what's more, it's only late September. We've got 3 more months of this lunacy, 3 more months of massive fights, 3 more months where we're camped in Monaco or Texas or Vegas or Riyadh for a week. It's unprecedented what's going on here. This is not normal. If you've become a boxing fan in the last 6 months, it's not normal, this. It can't continue like this. We can't work 48 weekends of the year. It's insane. I love it.
What I love about you is you're at practically every single boxing event, whether it's small hall, whether it's the big stage. We're guaranteed to see Steve Bunce there with a mic talking to everybody. Keeping that magic alive after so many years. I get it's not normal now, but you've always been the same. Consistency, we talk about discipline, we talk about consistency in boxing. How about that in journalism?
Well, when I started, and it was a long time ago, and first of all, I was doing very small shows. It took me nearly 7 years to get to Las Vegas, for instance, which is, and I wanted to go to Las Vegas when I started, but I couldn't get there for about 7 years. It took me about 10 years to get to Madison Square Garden. And it took me a long time to actually be reporting the main event as opposed to doing the undercard for newspapers or just doing quotes. So sometimes my job in the late 80s at Lloyd Honeyghan fights was just to do the quotes, to go into the dressing room afterwards, speak to Lloyd and Mickey Duff, and then run those quotes back to a man called Ken Mays who was writing for the Daily Telegraph. That was my job, just to do the quotes. You think about it, it's absurd, it's ridiculous. So me covering fights all the time now, it's what I do. What else am I going to do? I'm not going to retire and start fishing and get my slippers and my pipe out. I'm at a 4-bout show. We're recording this at the Magna Centre in Rotherham. We've just spoken to Terry Harper and Rhiannon Dixon, and it's about 1:30. Tonight in Cannock at Bar Sport, I'm going to a 4-bout professional show. And then Saturday I'm at York Hall, and then Friday I'm at York Hall, and Saturday I'm back here. That's just the way it works. It's what I do for a living. It's not part-time. It's what I do for a living.
Speaking about what you do for a living, I was there as you were walking back from I believe it was the dressing room of Anthony Joshua,
yes,
as he was making his way to the press conference.
When I was talking to him,
Yeah, one of the things I picked up on is him saying survival mode.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that for us, please?
Yeah, he said that when he was hurt, when he was dropped, what was really amazing about that, Red, I tell you, it was really strange. He remembered it wholesale. So it's half an hour after the fight. It's the only interview he's done. But he remembered being caught and hurt at the end of the first. He remembered getting through the second round. He remembered being caught right at the end of the third. He remembered being dropped, bundled over in the fourth. And he remembered walking himself into the final shot. It's really rare for a man that's been stopped or a woman that's been stopped to have total recall about what's happened in the ring. He had watched the 5th round back a couple of times.
Already?
He watched it in the dressing room, yeah. And that's what. So he was talking to me about that. And that was when I think you probably heard him saying, well, I was in survival mode. Which, of course, is something that he's maybe been accused of not having in the past. People have said that he freezes and he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to respond. Well, he did enough survival in that fight to show me that he understands survival mode. In fact, he could write the manual on survival mode, because he really, you know, not to be blunt, it didn't look like he was there after the first round, the big concussive shot that dropped him heavily in the first round. I think, you know, I'm on record as saying I think Anthony Joshua gets unbelievable stick and abuse. It was a classic, you know, with him. You know, he's never fought anybody. He's never done this. He's done that. He's got no chin. He's got no heart. He's got no guts. And then he gets beaten. They say, "See, I told you so." Same thing happened, and I tell this all the time with Nassim Hamed. You know, the British press and the media really disliked Nassim Hamed, and he just kept winning, and they'd say, "This guy's a bum, this guy's too old, this guy's this guy's that." 20,000, 18,000 in venues. He does not an attraction. When he get beat by Marco Antonio Barrera in Las Vegas after the most horrendous camp in history, members of the British press, newspaper press, this is at that time, were giving each other high fives. 65-year-old men were high-fiving each other in celebration that little Naz had lost, and literally saying, "I told you he couldn't fight." It was about his 34th fight. He was unbeaten. Go figure. They were a cruel bunch, to be honest with you. And I just think sometimes with AJ, that same kind of spirit kind of exists, where people tend to dismiss him.
Why?
And maybe it's our British way, that we're always looking for flaws, we're looking for chinks, we're looking for things to criticise rather than praise. I mean, Frank Warren at the press conference in London earlier this week was saying, why? I think he opened his conference with saying, why are people being negative about the other night? Daniel Dubois is the new hero. AJ went down on his shield, showed his heart and guts. There were 98,000 people there. We rule the world. How can anybody in the British boxing business be critical of that? And Frank was asking how. And of course, online social media is a tough place. It's a hard place for gentle conversation. Let's put it that way.
So then, your experience going through like the timeline of that from when it was like written media, when people
only written media, yeah.
It's like the evolution of boxing. Where do you see it going, Steve? Because you've been around for a bit, and I mean that in a nice
No. Hey, listen, I have no problem with that. It's really weird, because I'm not quite. If you ask me, do I think that basically 40 years ago, boxing was the same. The promoters were near enough the same. Frank was around, and Barry was kind of around 35 years ago. So Barry, Eddie, and champions were champions, and we did 12-3s, and we had the same medical procedures, and we had the same sort of venues-ish. So that hasn't really changed. Obviously, the coverage has changed drastically, from 15 newspaper men to 30 or 40 or 50 people like yourself working and filming people. And there were no rivals then. So there were no MMA businesses, no bare-knuckle boxing, no misfits to dilute the pot that we can feed from. Witness Nassim Hamed's son. One's a misfit, one's a traditional boxing. So there was no dilution then. Will I be around if I live for 30 more years? And would it be the absolute same business? I'm not sure, Red. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure if it's the same business. I'm not sure if there's dominant promoters in America, dominant promoters in Britain, and a couple of outliers like the Saudi outfit, and men and women. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. I think there's too many outlets and places and ways, and it won't take long until we get a champion created or made somewhere who decides that he or she is just going to step completely outside and fight on his or her own. And he or she goes over there, and she doesn't go with any of the promoters. She doesn't go with any of the channels. She or he streams their own stuff, and they decide to pick their own opponents, and they'll pick someone from inside any sport, and that will be part of the dilution. And then there'll be guys that go pro with that person who don't fight under any governing bodies or sanctioning bodies, and they just fight over there in these one-off crazy events. And then in 5 years or 10 years, those crazy events, those one-offs, they become like established. And in 15 years, who remembers when people used to win the Southern Area title and the British title? Because over here we've got this whole new, not misfits, it's real boxing, but it's like misfits because they're independent. Who knows where we go?
You know,
who knows?
It's crazy, because anyhow we play this back, if I live to see another 30 years, it'd be very, very interesting if that's the case. I might have said this sounded crazy a few more, even 2 years ago, Steve, but now
If you'd have said to me 10, 15 years ago, there'll be no national newspapers covering boxing, but there'll be 60 people with cameras who film you, Steve, and ask you questions and put them on a channel. If you'd have told me that 15 years ago, I would have said you're crazy. Well, that's complete reality. If you'd have said to me 10 years ago, we're going to have these things called YouTubers and influencers who are going to sell out arenas with 20,000 people and get great figures boxing on DAZN alongside real boxers, I would have said, how does that work? That's never going to work. Well, that's established. Anyway, who knows?
Finally, I've got to ask
Go
your
on.
opinion. A lot of people have had a lot of things to say about Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
What he should do next. When you look at career comparisons, which I'm sure you've seen plenty. You've seen the rise, you've seen the fall, the rise, and then the eventual teeter off in the end.
Yeah.
Would you say that he's in the twilight, or would you say, yeah, he's still got a few bits left in him?
I think he's got a couple of bits left, but we're certainly towards the end of the career. Has he got 2 fights left? Has he got 3 fights left? I don't think he's finished, although if he walked away, I wouldn't be screaming. I don't think he's got anything left to prove. He would disagree, and he's the only one that counts. So he's got a couple left. Now, whether those couple are, whether he maybe does a Fury fight, whether he gets a rematch. I don't think he can fight another sort of Otto Wallin and Hellenius. He doesn't need to rebuild. We're too far down the road for that. So it's big fights. The problem is if you're just going big fights, is you've got to win the next one to set the second one up. And then the third one, which will be the final one, win or lose, you can go into it. But you've got to win the next one. And if he has a big one, who knows? So, but his influence has been just monumental. What he's done over the last 12 years or so. It's just been... I think fighters are starting to recognise that. I mean, Dubois was praising him all week. Let's get that right, and rightly so. A bit like Katie in the women's business. I'm not. Katie gets praised by people that hate her because you can't but praise her for what she's done. And I think it's the same with AJ. Really, I think people praise him, even if they dislike him. But because of what he achieved, what he did, all those massive sellouts. All those enormous O2 nights and everything he's given us over the years, he's an honest guy. He's fought his heart out, fought his heart out. I love him, top guy.
Thank you for such an impartial view on this. I needed that, and what a perfect way to end the day. October Red with the amazing, the wonderful, the talented Steve Bunce.
Top girl.
People say I'm toxic, and honestly, I don't care.